we're going to be doing is the last of the really complicated ones, which is our masonry. So with this one, again, we've got tabs across the top, so like so, and then we've got some tabs up the side. So this is where we are going. So we'll do the tabs across the top first. Once that's done, then we will do our side tabs and get this one taken care of nice and quickly. So you will notice we have the tabs across the top. We start all the way out at section 13, appendix. So that is where we're going to be starting. We're going to work our way across the top with these particular ones. So this is going to be kicking off on page 85. Page 85 is where we'll be putting this tab for the appendix. So on page 85, I'm putting my appendix tab. Going to work my way across the top and then do my side tabs. Once this is done, then we're into our fast flowing other Australian standards. So we have our page 85 for appendix. Out on the outside corner, I'm going to work my way in. So after my appendix, I'm going to page 81. And on page 81, I'm putting in section 12, reinforcement, masonry walls. So I'm going to put this one, and as I said, just going to work my way across the top. So we've got that on page 81. After page 81, we've got our section 11, unenforced masonry, leaf, single leaf. So this is going to be kicking off on page 77 for us. So page 77 for this particular one. So that's our reinforcement. So section 11, unreinforced single leaf. So that's 77. Then we move into section 10, which is our cavity masonry. And that's page 61. Cavity masonry is going in on page 61. So section 10, cavity masonry, page 61. There we go, section 10. So section 10 is on page 61. Then we go to page 49. On page 49, we are putting in page 49 is section 6, masonry veneer walls. So masonry veneer walls, page 49. That's section 9, masonry veneer walls on page 49. After page 49, we're moving to page 41. On page 41, we're putting in section 8, lintels and arches. Lintels and arches on page 41. Lintels and arches on page 41. Lintels and arches on page 41. Then we go to section 7, control joints. And that is going to be on page 33. 33 is where we're putting in our section 7, control joints. So section 7, control joints, page 33. So section 7, control joints, page 33. After our section 7, control joints, we're going to be doing section 6, subfloor construction, which is going to be on page 25. So page 25 is where section 6 for subfloor construction goes in. So section 6, subfloor construction on page 25. page 25 for section 6. Then we have our section 5, built-in components. Built-in components is going in on page 21. So page 21 for section 5, built-in components. Built-in components on page 21. Section 5, built-in components. After section 5, built-in components, just over the page, to page 19 is where we're putting in our section 4 grout. Page 19 for section 4 grout. Page 19, section 4 grout. Okay, after that, section 4 grout, we've got section 3 mortar on page 15. So section 3 mortar on page 15. And a couple of tabs left across the top after this one. So page 15 for section 3 mortar. After section 3 mortar, we've got section 2 masonry units on page 11. Page 11 is section 2 masonry units. Like so, page 11. Then the final tab for across the top is on page 5, and that is section 1 scope. Page 5, section 1 scope is what we're doing on page 5. Beautiful. That gives us all our top tabs done. And now we're only going to worry about our side tabs. So going up the side here. Let everyone make sure that that's done. Okay. So next one we're kicking off on page 87. So page 87, and we're putting 3 straight tabs in on page 87. We've got our cleaning of masonry. We've got high water pressure, and we've got hydrochloric acid. So these 3 tabs around cleaning is starting at the bottom, working our way up on page 87. So we've got 3 tabs here that talk specifically about cleaning brickwork. So this is where our water pressure, so where we need a maximum water pressure of 7,000 kPa is written here in this section. And obviously the use of hydrochloric acid as well. And talks about how to use that hydrochloric acid. So that is those 3 tabs in one color on page 87. So that's where we start with those particular ones. So after those 3, we're going to move to page 83. And on page 83, we're putting in 2 tabs. So page 83. In 2 tabs on page 83, I am putting in weatherproofing and roof tie downs. So weatherproofing and roof tie downs are the first 2 tabs that I'm putting in on page 83. Okay, so that's our 2 tabs there. So that is roof tie downs and weatherproofing on page 83. After page 83, just go over to page 81 for starter bars. Page 81, 1 tab, starter bars. starter bars on page 81. So just working our way up. So after our starter bars, we've got some couple of really dark blue ones. Those two are going to go on the same page. On page 61, we're putting in 2 tabs. We're putting in our cavity masonry DPC and our cavity masonry width. So both on page 61 is where we're putting these. So we're putting in cavity masonry DPC and cavity masonry cavity width. So usually I'm just, because there's only a couple of tabs, just working my way up with these two. So that has covered off those. Okay, now we're moving into a lighter blue and I'm going to start down the bottom. So on page 59 is where I'll be putting in the tab veneer tie fixing. Veneer tie fixing is, I'm going to start back down the bottom corner and work my way up in these lighter blues. So veneer tile fixing is where I'm kicking off on page 59. So after page 59, I'm going to 57 for my veneer tie rating. Veneer tie rating is my next tab on page 57. So veneer tie rating. Veneer tie rating is on page 57. After 57, we're going to 55 for wall ties. Page 55, we're putting in our wall ties tab. So wall ties, there on page 55. After 55, we're jumping over the page to 53 for two tabs. We're putting in our circa flashings and head flashings. Circa flashings and head flashings on page 53. So circa flashings and head flashings both on page 53. So we've got those 2 tabs there. That's page 53. After page 53, we're going to page 51 for one single tab, which is cavity flashings. Cavity flashings on page 51. Cavity flashings on page 51. So cavity flashings on page 51. Then we've got 2 tabs in that particular colour left, and both of those are going on page 49. So that's our veneer DPC and our veneer cavity. So both those, veneer DPC and veneer cavity, both on page 49. So we've got those 2 in. So that finishes that particular colour. Then we move into page 49. Sorry, 45. Page 45. I'm going to keep coming up because we've only got 3 in the next colour. So on page 45, I'm putting in my lentil install. So lentils install here on page 45. And after lentil install on page 45, on page 43, I'm putting in my other 2 tabs for this colour. So I'm putting in my minimum bearing for lentils and my brick overhang on lentils. So those two tabs on page 43. So page 43 for those two tabs. That finishes that particular color as well. So that is on page 43. We've got our minimum bearing lentils and brick overhang for lentils. So after that, we're going over the page to page 41 for a tab, which is control joint infill. Control joint infill. We're putting that at the, and I'm going to start back down the bottom on page 41. So control joint infill, I'm putting on page 41. So after page 41, I'm putting in one tile reg control joint. So tie reg control joint, which is going on page 37. So page 37, one tab, which is tie reg control joint. So we've got that. After our tie reg control joint, we're going to page 35, and 35 we're putting in two tabs. We're putting in our expansion joints and contraction joints. So two tabs on page 35, expansion joints and contraction joints. So expansion joints and contraction joints, both on page 35. So that's on page 35. Then we've got three more in that particular color, and they're all going on page 33. So you've got your AJs, AJ spacing and AJ limits, all going in on page 33. So I'm just putting these three in. So AJs, AJ spacing and AJ limits on page 33. Okay, beautiful. So we've got those ones done. Now, because we've got only three in the next particular green color, I'm going to keep moving up. So the next one is on page 27, where I'm putting in subfloor clearance. On page 27, subfloor clearance. So just working my way up in these particular greens. So subfloor clearance. On page 27, for subfloor clearance. And then after page 27 for subfloor clearance, the other two green particular ones are going in on page 25. So that is subfloor ventilation and brick unit locations. So subfloor ventilation and brick unit locations. Got those two on page 25. That is excellent. That's those ones knocked over. So next up, we've got three in a yellow color, all to do with grout, and those three are all going in on page 19. Page 19 on grout. So I'm going to do my three: purpose of grout, grout composition, and purpose. Those three tabs, and I'm going to start down my bottom corner and work my three tabs up on this particular one. So this is page 19. So starting down the bottom corner again, 3 tabs straight away. So there we go, 3 yellows on page 19. So that is grout purpose, grout composition and purpose. So after that, we've got 4 orange ones, and the 4 orange ones are also going on the same page. On page 17 is where we're putting in our 4 orange tabs. So mortar additives, mortar composition, mortar mix table, and mortar table, all going in on page 17. So 4 tabs on page 17, mortar additives, mortar components, we've got mortar mix table, and we've got mortar table. So 4 tabs on page 17, all in this orange color. That gets those ones out of the road. Then we've got 3 red ones. So we're going to put those 2 of those red ones on page 9. On page 9, I'm putting in 2 tabs. I'm putting in my definitions in the red and my normative references. So I'm going to keep these coming up because I know that I'm not going to run out of room. So I'm putting in my definitions on page 9, and I'm putting in my normative references also on page 9. So 2 tabs on page 9. So those 2 there, beautiful. The last tab for this particular book is limitations, and that limitations is going in on page 5. So page 5 is where we're putting our limitations in, and that will be the last tab for this particular book, which is probably the last of the really complicated Australian standards. So that's page 5 for that one, and that's that book complete. That's that one out of the way.